Okay, well, we'll get started. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm trusting you can hear me loud and clear and see the presentation. So I'll get started. Be great. You guys just everyone can keep themselves on mute because we're using Teams in this way, so we can utilise the chat. One of the things that would be great, if there are any questions that come up, can you please put them in chat? We're going to present for probably about 30 minutes of content, and then we're going to have questions at the end. So any questions you can get them in the chat in Teams, and then we'll follow those up at the end. So say 30 minutes of content and 15 minutes of chat. Okay, so in terms of so just a bit about Code. I assume everybody knows about Code and who we are. We're a digital product studio in Manchester for about 80 people, and really just a bit about what we believe in. Really, I think we believe in make change, and there's two elements of that really. One is making things, and we make digital design and build digital products for our clients. And that's something we've been doing for over 20 years now. And the change element is all about the actual change we have and the impact we have for our clients. And also, as well as just actually delivering great results, it's also about how we help those organisations change and how we work with organisations to coach them. Whilst we're building and whilst we're making, so helping them change their organisation through that process, and also and leaving behind skills that the teams can use after we've worked with them. I think that's really important. That we're helping businesses develop their internal capability. We'll talk a little bit about that today as well. In terms of the event today. This is the first, actually, it's the first from a series of Code Talks. So yeah, this is the first one, and we're talking today about how we're going to help, or the key things really that clients are looking to do and partners are looking to do in 2021, and how we're going to work with them to actually deliver against that. And the Code Talks are going to be monthly, and we're going to look at different themes each month on thought leadership. Give you a bit more of an update of what the next ones coming up are. But say today's all about 2021. We've got a few different people from Code joining me today. I'm just going to get and all the guys are leaders of their disciplines, but I'll get them quickly to introduce yourselves, if you will. Before we do that, I'm Rob Jones, Client Service Director at Code. So I'm responsible really for helping our partners make sure they get the most from the products that we work with them on. That's it from me. Louis, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Louis. I'm one of the original founders and the MD of Code. So I've been working in the digital industry close to like 25 years now, and worked with all kinds of organisations, helping build the products, helping shape the teams, and that's kind of my passion really. I suppose in seeing the change that we can make for organisations internally and externally through the stuff that we build together. Cool, Colin.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I'm Colin. I'm head of design at Code. I've been at Code for nearly 14 years now, quite a while. I look after product design and sort of service design within the experience design discipline. And I get involved with a bit of research, bit of design, bit of facilitation, like seeing products through to shipping. So that's me.
Cool. Jess?
Jess?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Jess. I'm head of UX at Code. I've been here for about 3 years, but what that kind of means, I guess, from my role is I work really closely with Colin and the design team, essentially, and we're part of one big experience team. And I just make sure that we're kind of doing the right research for the right reasons and making sure that we get the outcomes that we want from it, and then also ensuring that that kind of gets utilised all the way through into some of the solutions that we actually make. So I think it's that kind of getting good research as and when we need to get the outcomes that we need and making sure it's used.
Cool, thank you guys. And yeah, before we get started on sort of some of the detail from the team, I just wanted to really talk about sort of the future focus, and looking at the future has never been more important than it has today. I think, as we're all aware, sort of the amount of upheaval both in our personal lives and in the business world that we had to contend with last year was unprecedented and sort of never felt before. And that pace of change that was driven by the sort of pandemic has meant that future has even sort of been driven sort of closer towards us. And that customer experience is at the front of all of our customers and partners' minds, and also of all their customers as well. And in fact, sort of some of the reports are saying that in 2020 digital adoption happened at 10 times the predicted rate. So our customers, our end customers, are have sped up and are so used to using the products that we're putting in front of them, and there's no signs of that slowing down as well. So we're starting to get some really interesting reports and data from our partners and different sources are looking what's going to happen this year, and then coming out of some of we're actually partnered by WPP, and they're predicting that digital advertising spend is going to increase 12% this year, back to way above 2019. There's a survey that I've been reading from Adobe, where only 17% of businesses are happy with their digital customer experience, and that's going to be one of the major focuses for those organisations in 21. We're also seeing that also seen from a report around the state of Agile, which basically is a survey that goes out to 40,000 professionals in the product industry. And in the last 6 months of last year, the adoption of Agile increased by 33%, and over 55% of people surveyed plan to increase the use of Agile and how they use Agile methodologies within distributed teams to get their products to market quicker. So I think the world we're working in and the world we're focused on is going to continue to move at a hell of a pace this year. I'm moving on to sort of more about today. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to share some of the areas that we'll be focusing on in 2021. Some of the key things that we've been discussing with our partners and where they want our help. And what we're going to plan to do is to share some of the methods that we use with clients and partners, and then actually help and provide you guys with some resources that you can use and take away. So there's 4 key areas that we're going to focus on today. One is looking around how we're going to get teams to be more effective, and obviously that's even more important now we're working in a remote environment. We're going to talk a little bit about how we can keep on track of customer demands. And what the customers expect from us. We're also going to look at how it's even more important than ever to continue to innovate on the products that we've got. And we're also finally going to look at some of the ways that we can ensure that the things we're doing are creating the most business value. So they're the 4 areas that we're going to focus on. And as I say, please do put some questions into the chat, and we'll pick them up towards the end. So Louis, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Rob. So yes, so teams. It's probably the thing that there's been changes happening, and it's often the thing, changes to our team, often the thing that's kind of getting sometimes least attention, because it's the thing that is just happening because of necessity, and our teams and organizations have all been kind of dragged along, whereas perhaps the focus has been on maybe like on growth or on pivoting, or there are other kind of business levers. But actually I kind of think it's one of the biggest changes that could happen to organization, and the overall effectiveness of how their organization, or how an organization or brand delivers to its end customer, is absolutely determined by the effectiveness of the team. So if we kind of look at what's happened in 2020, there's no surprises here. So that even the term distributed workforce, a few years ago, there were few businesses that could really say that they were operating well with a distributed workforce. And if we're all honest, most businesses tried their best to limit that. But actually, we've been forced into it, and so what that's kind of forced all businesses to do is really to redefine kind of their teams, what how their teams operate, what the makeup of a team is. Really think about what are new or better, different ways of working, new ways of working, sometimes looking at perhaps better ways of working. And it's kind of meant, and this is the interesting thing, for a lot of teams, actually, there is more sharing and more visibility and more transparency, actually, in a distributed way of working than they have when they've all been co-located. And the thing that kind of underpins a lot of that is that what this has actually done is this is fundamentally changing any organization, because it's kind of it's adapting the culture. And the culture of an organization and the things that people do, how people come together, how they communicate and interact with each other, and all these things that have been, in some instances, kind of radically changing. And we've often not stopped to I guess, really, really look at the vast change that we've been through. And the thing that all that adds up to, and this is probably, I bet everyone in the room will. You'll probably all recognise this, that change actually does equal pressure, and if there's anything actually last year, for those businesses that have been super successful, there's been pressure, and for those businesses that have actually been struggling, there's pressure from a different angle to kind of pivot and adapt. Thanks, Rob. So what has this meant? And it's interesting because we're in a unique position because we work so closely with quite a diverse kind of types of businesses with different makeup of teams in all sorts of sectors. So we get a good view of actually what's kind of going on quite broadly in the digital community. And if we look at some of the needs that have definitely, to be honest, these needs have been adapting for some time and definitely been accelerated, as Rob said, like in the last 12 months. So sometimes organizations really are after, they need new capabilities. They're kind of some new skill sets. They perhaps wanted to pivot and adapt and try new things. And these are skills that maybe not in their team. So these are things that we're hearing people are asking very specifically for. Perhaps what they need is actually some support within their teams for just to kind of improve kind of some of their progress and working practices and rhythms and cadence. And so we're finding actually some of the role that we're playing is a bit more broad in kind of determining some of those broader patterns. Sometimes it actually is just capacity, and I know there's many businesses we've spoke to actually who have been booming, and actually what they need is actually just help to kind of go faster and want to lay loads of new work streams to kind of just take their digital estate up a notch, and they just need extra support and perhaps can't recruit quick enough, and so are looking for external help to kind of help them go faster. And then some of them have recognised as well that actually that the businesses need to go through more substantial shifts, and really what they want is help with that change, and are kind of looking to companies like us who have been working a lot of these methods for a number of years, and we've got very matured working practices, and we can kind of help some of the business on some of that change as well, which is similar to what we've gone through and similar to the role that we play for a lot of businesses. And then finally, sometimes that neutrality is kind of the thing that actually right now where people are perhaps unsure of kind of what they should be doing, they're looking for external help just to support in some of that decision making and kind of and help lay out what some of the options and priorities might be. So there's quite a few things, and businesses are looking, they are looking to organisations like us, and we can see this as a growing need, and it's probably going to carry on throughout the year. In terms of kind of how this is like playing out, then the thing that we're seeing, and as teams as businesses have recognised that actually distributed teams are kind of now the norm, and even within their in-house team members are kind of a spread can be spread from anywhere in the country. They found that actually it's never been easier to kind of add new team members into that team. So what we're seeing is in some instances we're kind of forming what I'd class as kind of a true partnership really with some in-house teams, where actually we're working quite closely together. We've got the shared set of goals. The team's empowered and have been given autonomy and responsibility, and we're just working very closely on the day-to-day. So what this means is actually in some instances, when we're providing some of that capability and kind of bringing some of our skills and methods and practices in, then we're sharing some of that learning, and part of that relationship is the upskilling. So so our people will be coaching by working collaboratively and working together and help building things together. We're kind of helping to drive some of that upskilling agenda as well. What it also gives us though as well is it does mean that actually we can be it gives businesses some of that flexibility and scalability. So actually by bringing in when needed kind of our members from our team to kind of either be working closely alongside them or to be making partner teams, then it's kind of quite easy to be able to kind of to adapt as and when's needed. And so these virtual teams now of the makeup can definitely be a hybrid of really just the capabilities that are needed for a particular project or particular work stream or particular need. And then Rob, if you want to move on. And so the thing, and this is really interesting because I'm always banging on about agile, and I've been working very, very closely with all types of organisations actually, and have been advocate of agile practices for a while because they for us and for our business, they absolutely underpin a lot of the core methods and the core kind of team and organizational culture as well actually. And so what we're seeing is actually a lot of those core agile practices are what are bubbling through. And so when we talk about being kind of customer centric and responding to customer need and to change, that's absolutely kind of the core of agile. If we're to be iterative and informed and driven by data and driven by insight, that's absolutely core to kind of the iterative cycles of agile. And this is kind of what we're seeing now, the need to kind of be iterative and to respond to change in times like this. Agile is all about empowering teams, and actually whether that is an in-house team or that's a joint team, actually those teams given the clarity of goals and given that responsibility to kind of drive that change. And Agile is all about, and this is part of why Agile has really thrived and the adoption has been massive whilst we've been distributed or working remotely, that shared visibility of kind of what everyone is doing and that driving kind of the close collaboration. And then the final core element of Agile is the learning aspect and continual improvement. So Agile absolutely kind of helps underpin kind of some of those working relationships, and that's kind of a lot of the practice that we're kind of instilling in the relationships that we're running. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Louis. And Jess, on to you.
Yeah, not a problem. So I'm going to talk us through a bit of this customer understanding. Rob, if you want to go to the next slide for me. So it's one of the things that we try when putting this together. We thought, like, what's the things that we're actually seeing at the moment? And I think where we can focus on customer understanding is that people want more confidence in their decision making. There's lots of things that are having to change very quickly, as Louis said, but we kind of want to know that we're doing the right thing as well, because we're having to go at such kind of rapid speed and be quite reactive at the moment. So this is where research can really help us build that kind of confidence in decision making. And because there's kind of no baseline, I guess, due to the last year and the world that's now created, your data isn't going to be reflective, like to do year-on-year comparisons. Your users' mindsets completely shifted. We've all kind of had to change the way that we do everything, I guess. And what I'm going to talk us through now is just like a few things that we've actually seen, and then just kind of some models and stuff that we use to approach research. So the first kind of obvious point, I guess, is that the world has changed and so have our users, but that's an extreme version for 2020. But I would actually say this is happening all the time. There's always something that's disrupting where people are at, and that means that your users can change and what they're doing can change behaviorally all the time anyway. So we should always be kind of checking in to research regardless. But this is an example of where we've got one of our clients and we've seen a drastic shift in the last year of their demographics actually change. So their audience has gotten a lot younger, and particularly from like their appointment rate, and it's really kind of changed. Actually, is the proposition still going to work for these people? Is there something that we need to do to adapt that now, knowing that there's different types of people? So if you go next slide for me, Rob. Yeah. So if it's all about building confidence and reducing risk, this is kind of one of our code mantras that we live by, that it's insight over opinion. And we can obviously make things based off an opinion and try, but not always will it give you that level of confidence. And this is kind of a framework that we've created that demonstrates that a little bit. So research, I know there's like a bit of a bad rep, everyone thinks it takes forever, but I think this is one of the things that we take into consideration of like what to research and how, and it all comes down to managing that level of risk. So is it a new thing that we're really not sure about? That would probably require a lot more time, which to reduce that level of risk. But actually, if it's a smaller thing, could we just put it out there, acknowledge that the risk is high, but monitor it to kind of reduce that level of impact as well? So if we are seeing that it's having a negative impact, we can start to pivot for that. Next slide, Rob.
Yep.
And this is just a demonstration of how you can flip that around to reduce risk. So obviously I'm making a great case for research. This is where it can help, but what do we actually mean by research in general? So this is kind of like the 4 things that I think research can help us do when thinking about our users. So understand who they actually are, understand where they are, like in that sphere, what are they looking at, is the new apps out there that they're going to, and then also understanding what it is that they actually need to do, because we can't motivate people unless there's actually an underlying need there. And then the final one is like, how do people think about things? So you could be doing the same task over and over, but people might think about that task completely differently. So it's kind of doing research to uncover the answers to a lot of them types of things. Go to the next one. So there's 2 types of research that we do at Code. And the first one on the left is this explorative research. And this is what we tend to refer to as discovery, but it's there to help uncover where the problems are, what opportunities exist, what are the needs of people, and really get to understanding the kind of landscape. And then the second type of research is basically utilising all of that opportunity to see whether things are actually working and see whether they are having an impact in the way that we intend, or if they're not, and what do we need to do to pivot around that. So I think we switch our mindsets around research a lot dependent on the problem that's in front of us as well, from explorative to validation. And our approach is to use mixed methods. So we use qualitative research to kind of engage with a smaller number of people, but find out lots of things, and take that into quant research to actually get that to almost back that up and validate the insights that we gathered from that kind of broader qual stuff. Just making it work together to make it really effective and build that confidence. And this is kind of a profile that I created to think about ways of understanding our users and actually being able to build up a fuller picture over time, because there's always a big persona debate out there, but essentially what I've tried to do is say that everything has a place and everything can be used. It just depends on the problem that you're trying to solve. So if you're looking at finding customers, demographic personas are actually really great. Like, you need to know who you're going to target and how you're going to grab them. And data segments are even better if you're looking at kind of like more task-based stuff. How are we going to segment these audiences based on the way that they came in? Like, maybe there's an email campaign, people that saw it, people that didn't, and we can see how that influences that behavior and segment them down and look at that task-based behavior that they actually get up to. On the other side, we've got empathy-based stuff. So that's where the demographics really do help with that as well. It really does help people to kind of visualize a person. But when you need to focus on kind of getting people to do a task or getting people kind of convinced, a mindset profile is something that you can create to help understand the different kind of ways that people might think about something. And then finally, in the bottom corner, that's that kind of more task-based, but also about making sure that everyone can achieve a task, is all around jobs to be done. You can read up about this, by the way. I am doing it high level. I've got a whole article that goes into this in detail. So by segmenting our audiences and learning what we need to learn about them dependent on the thing that we're trying to do, we are continually going through this cycle of build, measure, learn, and that's where we kind of gather some insight. We put that into a strategy of how the product or service needs to adapt and change, make that kind of out there and see how and monitor how that's actually working, and go full circle, because that can drive more insight as well. So my key thing is basically continual learning just means that you can continually research so that you can continually improve. And if it never stops, you can always just keep kind of building that good relationship with your users and really understanding where the problems lie.
Cool.
Over to you, Carl.
Yeah, thanks, Jess.
Hi, I noticed there's a question in the chat. Are we doing those at the end?
Yes, Cole, we'll come back to them at the end.
Cool. Hi everyone. Yes, I get to talk about innovation, which is cool because I like talking about that. So do you want to go to the next slide, Rob?
Yeah.
I guess the reason why this is important and is to me is obvious, but I guess it's like businesses have obviously found themselves in different situations. Like they're either really succeeding because of like the current situation of COVID, like they've like customers need their service more and more, and then the digital platform and the way that they engage with customers is like exponentially expanding, and therefore they've got a challenge of like improving their service because they've like massively grown, or they might feel like they have to pivot. But it's really difficult to kind of do that when you're, I suppose, trying to keep the lights running, like keep going, like keeping your business working and kind of making your website work or your product or your service work. So it's hard to think about innovation because that's like a thing that gets deprioritized because that's something to think about in the future. But actually, you need to do it now, and it creates like it's quite pressured and difficult, and it's hard to do, and it feels scary, and it's like, how do we innovate in this kind of in this way? So some of the things that we're seeing clients coming to us is like, can you help us kind of like pivot or change or improve and stretch our thinking really? And I guess there's always this kind of fear for businesses as well, like because other companies are doing it and they're not, like, so other companies are like improving their website, pivoting and improving and innovating, and we're going to just get left behind essentially. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we mean by innovation. I'm not necessarily going to give you a lecture on how to do innovation, although I can do that. I'm more than happy to do that if you would like on another talk.
I think that's another talk, Cole.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what I'm going to talk about really is like how we think about innovation, because ultimately innovation is achieved by a bunch of motivated people that can think really well. Like you just get people together, and that's essentially what code are really. But what I always hear is people say, "Oh, we're not innovative enough," or "We don't do innovation," and often what I have to kind of say is like reframe what you mean by innovation, because we're all innovating in some way, and this is how we kind of think about it in a model. There's different types of innovation, and I guess most people think of innovation as like a radical, disruptive kind of form of innovation, like the Elon Musk of the world, like creating a new product, forming a new market, and it's like shiny and kind of like wow kind of stuff. But actually, innovation can be in your process or in your service operation. So like finding better ways to communicate to your customer that's quicker and more effective and better than your competition. That's innovative as well. So there's lots of different ways to think about innovation, and you can do a bit of reading about the kind of these quadrants out there. But this is how we think about innovation, and it's important to kind of set expectations of what you mean. So often we're in the top quadrant. So I guess this makes it a bit more real. Everyone knows about Apple, so you can be innovating continually in your product, like making it better, making the screen bigger, making the software better, but you can make some leaps, revolutionary leaps. So like the MagSafe thing, like a really new, different product feature, or you can take what you've got and form a new product, like a watch, like they just basically put a screen on it on your wrist. Or you can be disruptive and actually pull a load of services and products together to create a new market, a new service. So basically, that's what we're talking about when we talk about innovation. It's actually in all of those quadrants. Go next, Rob, please. And we're doing that actually with one of our clients. It's called JCT. They're a dealership, quite a big, multi-billion-pound dealership in Yorkshire. If you live over that neck of the woods, and we're helping them essentially from a service design perspective, actually, like improving the customer website experience. But we're also like going under the skin of like how the service operates, looking at the tools, how they connect customers from once they've bought, understanding how a car goes through the business. But I guess from an innovation point of view and the pivot kind of conversation, they obviously realized once COVID came along, like people can't go to the dealerships. So a product that we were making, which is like a portal to like enable customers to book a test drive type thing, we pivoted that really quickly to enable contactless buying experience. So that was really cool. So like being able to kind of think fast and use our design kind of processes to kind of really pivot what we can do with our customers is awesome. Well, I feel that. Carry on, Rob. And I suppose when we talk about innovation and from Code's perspective, this is something from Dublin's 10 types of innovation. If you know about that, there's a resource to link off to it. But the things that we are able to kind of like influence and innovating is these kind of areas. So like understanding the customer and the experience, the thing that people interact with, brand and proposition. Technology is often the great enabler to be able to connect systems together. Internal processes often gets overlooked, and operational structures, and then obviously business model, finance, different ways to charge for stuff is like there's a collection of things and areas to look at. If you get all those, think about all those together, you can really innovate in the market. Go next, Rob, please.
Okay.
And this is why, because obviously the competition is always chasing your heels, I guess. And most people think, well, we can innovate in the customer experience. We can make some new features or improve our website, do a bit of a brand refresh, something new and shiny. But actually, that's really easy to copy and replicate from a competitive point of view. So you have to sort of step ahead a little bit and think a bit bigger, and obviously have a plan. So your competition doesn't know where your North Star is. They don't know where you're heading. So as long as you've got a vision and a purpose, and thinking more holistically and wider about where you can innovate and deliver better services and do and operate better and all that kind of stuff, I think you can it's better. You can kind of get ahead of the game, really. And then the last slide from me is essentially like, how do we do that? So we sort of do a lot of service design, I suppose. We talk about product design, experience design, service design, but essentially what we're looking to do really is like look at a slice from top to bottom within the organizations and partners that we work with, so that we can really affect change and make things, and like we're not just making a website, we're actually like we're looking at like how that's going to affect the organization. What people do you need? Do you need better call center scripts, for example, or do you need to change your customer service, that kind of stuff? So, and what tools do you need? So we're looking at the whole thing, and we do that together to kind of influence change. So that's my little spiel about innovation. I'll hand over to Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. And yeah, just to wrap up, really, I think one of the things that we're seeing, and we see ever present really in sort of the work that we do with our partners, is that people want to really focus on delivering the most value, and actually making sure that we're doing the right things. I think that the investment, even though we are seeing lots of signs that investment in digital is where businesses are, is what people are doing, that we still need to make sure we're doing the right things and launching the right things and driving the most value from partners' investment and investment in developing products. Just in terms of the way that we look at that, like sort of three areas really that we focus on when we want to make the right decisions. I think one is looking at making sure that we're doing the right things for the business, and actually driving the business goals through our product. But also we need to make sure that we're really considering what the customers want, because there's no point doing what the business wants if the customers don't want it. Obviously, that's not going to be that those products just aren't going to sell, and no one's going to buy them. And then the third thing really we really need to consider is actually technology and how hard it is to do things, and actually make sure that we're choosing the right things to deliver first, so we get MVPs and the right iteration, the right flow of iteration of product to make sure we're releasing value as quickly as we can. So just going to talk about a few ways that we keep track of that and make sure that we've got a sort of a balanced view on all three of those. So one is sort of the way that we develop our measurement frameworks for the products that we work with. And it's a similar sort of processes, setting OKRs, if you're familiar with the way that Google does that, and we'll share some resources on that. But it's really making sure that corporate objectives filter down into the product objectives that we want to achieve, and then actually we've got the right measures below that, and then further down we've got detailed metrics. But the key point really is just making sure that we're driving things right the way through from that business objective into the product. I think having it set out like this makes sure that people are really, really clear on what we're doing and the value that we're driving. And I think we'd say that probably you don't ever want more than sort of 3, 4 or 4 business objectives that are driving into the product that we develop. And then importantly, what we do is we use them then to drive out the roadmaps of the product development. Making sure that we are actually with the things that we're releasing, they're actually delivering against the different areas and different streams of business objective. But yeah, we've got lots more examples that we can provide to anyone on this. And then I think this just recovers some of the stuff that Jess was talking about around making sure we're releasing customer value. This is just an example of some of the work that we've been doing recently with Abel and Cole, the vegetable retailer and veg box retailer. This is basically the process that you go through when you're trying to confirm your order or building an app for those guys. And basically what we've done is we've broken down all the different points within the customer journey. And then before we've gone into like detail, also delivery, we've gone back out to the customers and actually asked them which are the most important features for them. And then, you know, as you'd expect, people want to be able to see that order and manipulate the order and add things and take them away. I think Abel and Cole are an amazing business, so it's dead easy to get this information. You know, they get like 2,000 responses in a day to this type of survey, so it's really good for product development, quick product development. But what we realised within this is that sort of the feasibility of what people, the desirability of what people want was really about the changing the order. But it did tell us things that we weren't quite aware of, that things like favourites and past orders weren't as desirable as some of the other things that we'd expect, which is really, really interesting and actually helped us change maybe what we would have released first. And also doing that just gives you like really great sort of anecdotal insight that can help us innovate further as we go through the development. So that's the customer side of things. And then really what we another good way of looking at this is the final thing really is that tech feasibility, impact and effort. Someone might need to mute. Is just making sure that when we're working in multidisciplinary teams, we're pulling everyone together to look at those features at a very high level to see where the impact and effort, where the effort will be to do it, to release new pieces of work and new features. So, you know, we categorise, and I think I'm sure people have seen this before, but between hard and easy to develop, and then low and high value to the customer. And we do that exercise as a wide team, so all stakeholders can understand how we're going to build up the roadmap and what we might release first. Because it's not always, you know, we want to be aiming top right really for our releases. So this is an example of something that we've done recently with a client where, you know, the ones at the top right hand corner are the ones that we might release first. It's not always like that, because sometimes some of the business benefit might come elsewhere, but they're the ones that we would go for first. So really, that's just three areas that we focus on when we're trying to prioritize value and define our roadmaps. So very quick, it was quite a quick run through of those topics, but I was just wondering if we want to move on to a few questions for 5 minutes. Just come out and stop sharing that for a moment. As I noticed there's a few questions in the chat.
Yes. I can take that first one if you want. So mindset profiles are an interesting one because it's actually something Colin and I developed when we were working with one of our clients, and it comes down to that scale that we were working on before. So it wasn't really about finding users, which is where the demographic persona can kind of come in, because that's all about the people and their context of their lives, whereas mindsets is much more about what outcome are they trying to achieve. And we ended up creating this purely because the jobs to be done didn't really work from a product perspective, because there was only one job with the client that we were working on, and actually what did change people's experience wasn't their demographic information either. So at first we thought, well, maybe we can slice it by older people versus younger people, but that didn't link everybody together. So we did lots of almost like card sorting to group these people, and what we found that was the key thing that brought everyone together was the outcome they were trying to achieve. So it was with an ombudsman service, and basically there was outcomes such as I just want to get my money back, and another one that was like, I don't want this to happen to anybody else, so I want to make sure that the system changed. And the demographic information was almost non-important within that situation. It was much more about like, I'm trying to achieve this outcome, and it's the mindset I'm trying to take forward with that actually influenced the way that people interacted with the product itself. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, Col, actually.
I think that was well articulated. Yeah, I think it's like, in terms of how we group people, we group people by what they think. It's the mindset, literally. Like Jess said, like demographics was zero important. Like if you just want to get your money back, and there's a whole host of emotional kind of triggers and influential kind of things associated with those kind of people, whether you're old, female, male, whatever, it doesn't make a difference if you all think the same. So that's how we grouped them. And it was more emotive than the jobs to be done, which was pure task orientated.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cole. Jess, just another question for you, Jess, around sort of our process around testing and facilitation.
Yeah. Cool. So when it comes to usability testing, I don't think a lot has changed for us really, because we kind of use all the same setup. It's just now that we dial people in, and we've had to do that in the past. We've done it where we've had to call people in Australia because that's where some of the clients' kind of user base was. So for us, we've just essentially utilised our tools, but in a more remote setting, I guess. So we're using things like Lookback, which is really good for using mobile stuff. I think that's probably what's changed the most in the pandemic. Mobile testing we used to predominantly do in person. But now we've got a tool which definitely would recommend, that allows you, it is an app that you can install on your mobile, and participants can pop it on there and it records the entire screen as well as their faces. So that's been really good for usability testing. As for the second bit, facilitating workshops, I think we can all add a bit to this, especially you, Louis. You've done a lot of within Miro. We just moved it all online. We essentially run our methods in a very, very similar way. It's just now we have to do it within the realms of a screen rather than a wall. And we're using Miro a lot for that. But by all means, chip in, everybody, because I'm sure we've all done some facilitation of workshops.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? And it's become actually things like, this is really interesting, like workshop facilitation in some instances has got easier remotely. It's changed how you think about structuring a workshop. So I've been, for example, delivering some agile training and various other kind of training consultancy, when typically you do it maybe on 2 days concurrently. Because we're all remote, it's been able to kind of stretch these things out, because in truth nobody wants to be sat in front of the screen for 2 days solid. So breaking it down into like 90-minute modules and delivering that in different ways has made it easier. The one negative though for a facilitator is that you have to be super organized though, whereas a lot of workshops you can facilitate and you'd have a rough idea of how it's going to pan out, and you could literally be moving things on walls, scribbling on walls, etc. You have to get it very, very well organised on your collaborative work board. So it does force you to be really rigorous about kind of your timing and your plan and the methods and stuff you're going to take the team through.
Cool. Thanks, Louis, and thanks, guys. I think actually that's almost us out of time. So thank you, everybody, for attending and your questions. I just wanted to, before I go, I'll share the next talks we've actually got coming up. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about that. The first one, actually, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've got a series of talks, code talks, which is about a sort of industry insight and thought leadership. Excuse me a sec. I just want to share. And then so there's we've got two more talks we've got coming up. Can you see that? So there's a one. The next one actually is a product fundamentals event. You can see that. Can you see that?
Yeah, I've got it, Rob. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I just can't. The team's just being a bit weird. Yeah, the next one coming up is product fundamentals. That's it's about modern engineering, and that's run by Dave Heath. He's giving that, he's talking about just how you can simplify your approach to tech, and how you can make sure that what you're building is actually helping you deliver the right effective products, and making sure that the teams are set up in the right way. So that's on the 17th of Feb. Following that, we've got how to create effective digital teams. So I'm not sure whether that's you, Louis, doing that, but that's in partnership with Adam Recruitment. So he's going to be I think Louis is going to be talking some more about how we build out those teams. But a lot more detail here in terms of the events coming up. So please go and take a look at the site. And that's it. So yeah, thanks for joining today. Any more feedback, more questions, please get in touch at any of these channels. And thanks for joining.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, thanks for listening.